I have this familiar marks list in front of me and I would like to do some basic analysis on this marks list. Specifically, there are four numbers I would like to find out. Number of students who have scored distinction, total number of students that I have, total male and total female students. And I can do this because the data set is so small, I can manually count all of these things and fill up these details. But most of the data set that we have, let's say for example for an entire school, will have hundreds and hundreds of rows and we will not be able to manually count it. In those cases, calc can help us calculate these numbers very easily, for which we need to know a few formulae that we are discussing here. Primarily count, count A and countif. In this video we will be exploring these three options. Now let us start from the total students. How am I supposed to calculate the total number of students in my school or in my class? To simplify the problem, I have taken a class, but once these number of rows increase, the same formula can apply for a more bigger and larger data set. I know that the total number of students is 12 because I have numbered them, but if I want that number 12 to appear here, how can I use a formula to bring it here? So the formula that we can use if we want to count the total number of students, if I want to count how many of these rows are filled up, the formula for that is count A. And the way to do it would be to click on the function wizard here. I click on the function wizard. Now I know the formula I want to use. I want to use count A, for which I can either scroll down like this, so that I can scroll down till I see the word count A and I find it here, and then I can click on next. The next thing it asks me is where should we count. So let me select the area that I need to count and I want to count here. And if you notice, I'm selecting more rows than there are filled. Let's see what happens. Does it count 22 or 21 rows, or does it count only 12? Let's take a look at that. I select, and once I'm done, I release the mouse key and press the enter key on my keyboard. After that, I'm back in my function wizard and then I click on OK. Now you notice that here I'm storing this formula here, count A B2 to B22. So B2 starts here and B22 ends up here, and the total number of students who are there in that column is 12. What calc is essentially doing is only checking if the cell is filled or not. Let's say I add a few more names here, and we notice that 12 became 13. Though I have got one empty cell here, it doesn't count that cell. So let me remove this name again, and you see that it became back to 12. Let's say Shalini left the school, I removed her from this list, or I removed this entire row from here, and then it became 11 and so on. So let me keep it at 12. Again, the formula I used was count A. Sometimes it's better to use count A and not count. Count works when the details are numbers, and count A works irrespective of whether the details are numbers or text. So let's see that difference. Let's say I remove this from here. Instead of count A, I use count. Again, function wizard. I scroll down to look for count. I click on next, and I choose the same list here. Okay, let me stretch it till 22 anyway. Done. Press next, click OK, and it's giving me 0 because count which is here. We see count. It's not count A, it's count. Count doesn't count if it's not a number. Let me add a few numbers here and show you the difference. And it's saying 2 because there are 2 of these are numbers. Let me delete that, and it's gone back to 0. So essentially we should be using count A, and I can change that by clicking here and adding an A and pressing enter, and we are back to counting the total number of students. Now let's say I want to count the total number of male students, and to do that I will not use count A or count. I will instead use something called as count if. So let me show you how to do that. I want to this time calculate only total number of male students, and I want to fill it here. I see I can manually count it, but what I want to do is use calc and its wizard function to calculate. How do I do that? I launch the wizard function, and this time remember we are not using count or count A, we are using count if. We use count if, click next. It's asking me where should I look. We should be looking here. I press the enter key once I'm done. And what's the criteria? The criteria is male, and let me put that in close quotes, and automatically the result is 6. We see that there are 6 male students. Let's verify that. I click OK. It says 6 male students. Is that true? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and this number obviously has to increase if I add more male students. So let me just change one of these things to male and see if this number goes from 6 to 7. Or let me actually fix this. Maya has been listed as male. Let me fix that. Let me type female for Maya, press enter, and then we notice the change. It has become 5. It used to be 6, now it's 5. And the same logic can be applied here for the counting the female students. Now let me this time use, I know the formula, so I'm just typing in the formula. Let me see what happens if I type all caps. Yeah, so it's not case sensitive. I typed in all caps female, and it is telling me that there are 7. 5 and 7 is adding up to 12. Now COUNTIF need not be used just with strings like this. COUNTIF can also be used with numbers. Now we saw 2 cases of using of COUNTIF. In this case I used male, and in this case I used escape, and in this case I used female. And we also saw that it is not case sensitive. Even if I type in all caps, it will still read and see which one applies and which one doesn't apply. Now I want to use it with numbers. Now let's see how we can do that. I want to calculate number of distinction students, and my definition for distinction is greater than 75. So let's see how many students are manually. Let's see how many students have scored greater than 75. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Of course I'm missing out these 90s. 5 and 6. Is it 7? I don't know. Let's see. We can use the function wizard to know how many have scored greater than 75. Again I go back to COUNTIF and choose the range, and then choose the criteria. The criteria is greater than 75, but I have to put it under quotes. So let me close the quotes and open the quotes, and then click on OK. And I notice that there are 8 students who have scored greater than 75, and that's COUNTIF along with numbers. So this quotes are very important while using COUNTIF. So we have seen four different uses of count or count A and count if. Now if I have to save these numbers, I'm using the formula to calculate these. But if you just want to see or get a quick check on numbers and you don't want to really save it anywhere, there is a shortcut here at the bottom of your screen. Right now it says sum is equal to 0. That's because I've not selected anything. Let's say I want to see how much Shalini scored in maths and science. Only maths and science and nothing else. How do I do it? I don't have to write a formula for that. I go to this row here and I choose maths and science, 76 and 75. It's giving me a sum total of 151. And how much is her total score? Her total score is 444, which I've also stored here using a formula. So you can calculate the sum. Now sum is not the only thing that we can calculate. You can right click on this and we see that there are many options here. So let me click on average. Once I click on average, let's see what the average score for Abdul is. I'm leaving out Kannada because that's the total score of 125. It needs to have a different weightage. Let me see what the average score in the rest of the subjects are. So I select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells and it's telling me that the average is 91. Or I can select everybody in social science and I know that on an average students score 82 marks in social science and 81 in science and so on. And we can also choose other options. We saw average, we saw sum. We can also choose minimum and maximum. So let me quickly show that. Maximum is 98. In this selected window, maximum is 98 and minimum is 49. And if I have to count, I'll get a total number of students because it's counting all the cells, and count A as we have already seen. So these are some of the shortcuts also that could be used instead of calculating everything manually using formulae.